everyone, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. Today we're going to be painting this Anthurium, and I've selected my colors by holding my color chart close to the picture and seeing what colors I feel match best. I like the permanent magenta for the center, and for the leaves I am going to use a diluted sap green, and I'll be blending in a little hooker's green for the stems. So the first thing I want to do is let's wake up our colors. I'm going to keep my color chart nearby so I make sure I pick up the right colors. So I'm going to wake up my sap green and the hooker's green, as well as my permanent magenta, by squirting a little bit of water with my mini mister here. And I've got a couple of small brushes here. This is a size 0000, and this one is a liner brush, which I may or may not use to create the stem. We'll see. And I may also use, if I can find it, here it is, my silver black velvet round. It's a size 8. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my stems just very lightly. And by the way, this is Arch's hot press paper, which I've never used before, so I'm curious to see how this goes. We're going to make one go that way, and I'm just using the picture as a reference. I will probably do more of my own thing, as I often do. So, alright, I have my stems, and now I am loosely going to draw in that stamen, I believe it is. And then draw the back. And I'm going to keep this simple. I see folds in this one, which I am not going to use because for the sake of time, and to keep it simple so that you can follow along, I'm just going to omit that part. Okay, pretty happy with that. So I think the first thing I want to do is I want to get my background in for these, for the leaf or the flower part of it. So I have, I'm going to use a little sap green, and I'm going to dilute it, and that's what I have here on my palette to begin with. So for the bottom section, making sure not to touch the stamen, I'm going to remove that fuzz, and I'm going to fill in this section with a light green, and I keep going into my water jar and removing some of that pigment. I've never worked on hot press paper, so I'm curious to see how this goes. I've always used cold press paper, which I really like, but you know, I like to try new things. So I figured I'd give this a try. So now I just have water on my brush, and I'm going to drag some of that green up so that it's very diluted. Continue cleaning my brush. Okay, now we'll do the second one. So again, picking up that diluted green, a sap green, cleaning off my brush and dragging that green up, making sure that it's lighter. And then I'll do the other side as well. Same thing. Heavier consistency of the green at the bottom. I'm going to rinse off my brush and I'm going to drag it up. I'm going to make it a little bit darker around here because I want it to look like that's kind of folded inward. So I'm going to keep it a little bit darker in this area. Cleaning off my brush, and I'm going to soften those edges there. Okay, so now I'm going to do the stems while that dries, and I'm going to use the liner brush, and I'm going to pick up some Hooker's green. I need to wet that down a little bit more. So I think I may want this a little bit darker than the Hooker's green, so I think I'm going to pick up some French ultramarine and add it to my green to darken it up a little bit. I like that. Okay. So let's add our stem. this one. And that looks kind of dry, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to pause this and use my blow dryer. I'll be right back. Okay, so I gave it a quick dry with my blow dryer, and now we're going to do the stamen of the flower, and for that I chose the permanent magenta. I thought it was a perfect color, so I'm going to pick a little bit of that up. It's still soft because I just put these in there yesterday, so let me put some down. Whoops, yep, still soft. It hasn't dried yet, but I want a kind of thick consistency, and what I'm going to do is at the very top, that's where it appears to be the darkest, so I am going to start dotting that in, but I'm going to leave a little white space here and there, but I want to make sure that I keep the shape that I drew in, and maybe dot this a little bit closer, just leaving very little white space, and maybe do your outline first so you know where to stay. Just be using a couple little dots up and down that outline, and then filling in within those lines. But like I said, as you go down, make them a little bit further apart, leaving a little white space. And picking up some water as you move down so that they get a little bit lighter. So you can see I'm just dotting, but I'm keeping the shape of it, and I've made it a little bit lighter at the bottom and using a heavier consistency at the top, keeping it a little bit darker. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now we'll move over to the next one. For this one, I'm not going to do the line, a guide line down. I'm just going to stay within those lines, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so now I'm going to start leaving a little bit more white space in between. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more water and release some of that pigment. Release a little bit more. Can you guys hear my dog snoring again? He's too funny. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that, but I do notice that it is a little bit darker on one side and on the top, so I'm going to add a little bit of that French ultramarine to the mix that I already have on my palette. And I'm just going to add a couple of these darker little dots along the top and create the little shadow that I see there. I'm not going to go crazy with it, just adding a few little dots, just to create the shadow that I see in the picture. And I'll do the same on the other side. And it's just a little touch. It's nothing crazy. These are very loose botanicals. But these little details make a nice difference. All right, I'm happy with that. Now, I see these, I'm going to add a little shadow to these stems in a little bit, but I do see this veining in the leaves. So I am going to pick up my very smallest brush, which I believe to be this 0000. And I am going to pick up a very diluted consistency. Let me use a larger brush and make a very diluted consistency of this permanent magenta. And I'm going to use my brush very carefully to create a few of these lines that I see in the leaves, or rather the flower. I'm keeping them as light as I possibly can. And I notice that they all go towards the tip, which I did start to do originally. But I will try and fix that as best I can. I wish I had a smaller brush. I'm going to leave that alone. So on this side, I see that they look more green. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of this green. I'm going to use some water to dilute it and start creating these. And I see more green down here in between these veins, so I am going to try and add a little bit more of this green in between these veins. Towards the bottom, clean off my brush and then kind of fade it out a little bit. So I'm cleaning off my brush, fading out that green a little. And I'll do the same on the other side. And I do see a little bit of pink towards the top here, so I'm going to use a very diluted bit of that color and just add a couple of little lines in between of the pink. But I don't see any on this side. But I like the way it looks, so I'm going to add it anyway. Okay, so now I want to add a little shadow to this. So I am going to use a little bit of burnt sienna with my French ultramarine blue. I'm going to put a little bit of that there. Clean off my brush, pick up a little bit of my burnt sienna, and make a nice shadow color. It's such a strong color. I think I'm happy with that. It's a little more touch of blue. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that that's very diluted. So I'm going to add lots of water to it. And now I'm going to add a little bit of shadow. I should wait till to make sure that that's dry. So let's go back to the leaves, or rather the stems here. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that color and thicken up my stem a little because these stems are pretty thick. Gotta move my palette out of the way. I see a little detail here that I missed it before, so I'm going to fix that. It's almost like the stem goes kind of into the leaf, and then at the base of the stamen there's a little bit of green also. Okay. This one crosses over. Alright, so now I'm going to pick up my smaller brush again, and I'm going to pick up that shadow color, and I'm going to add a little bit of shadow at the base of the flower, and then I'm going to run it down . And because this stem crosses over the other, I'm going to add a little bit of darker color there. And then run that down. And I'll do the same on the other. So I'm adding a little bit more of the ultramarine blue to that mix, and a little bit more of the burnt sienna. And I'll do the same on this side. Just adding a little bit of shadow over here. And running it down one side of the stem. Alright, so now that I have that done, and I'm pretty happy with the way that looks, I am going to take that shadow color and dilute it. Add a little bit more of the raw umber, rather burnt sienna. Okay, and I see a little shadow in here, so I am going to attempt to just add that in there very carefully, so carefully that I can't even see it. Okay, so I'm going to take my clean brush now and kind of soften that a little bit. And then I'll do the same on this side because I see a little bit on this side. And it's just very faint. I also see it on this side, and I believe it's the shadow being cast by the stamen. And the last thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit more of this, I'm going to use this blue, Persian blue. And a little burnt sienna, just to create a little bit more of a shadow. On my stem here. Okay, I'll call that finished. Very simple. I hope you give this a try. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up, leave your comments down below, and check out the description box just below the video for a list of all the products used in this video. And I will see you in the next one. In the meantime, I'm just going to add a little bit more detail. Add a little bit of shadow up here. Clean off my brush. Blend it down. A little bit more down here. Just want it to look like it's bending. I want this area to be more highlighted and this area to be a little bit darker. So now I'm just going to softening it up a little bit. You know, if you watch my videos and you're familiar with my work, you know that I can never leave well enough alone. I always have to do more. And yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm going to do the same on this side, simply because I can't leave well enough alone. So I'm going right over the lines that I created before. I don't even care. I know what my eye sees something and I have to go with it. So yeah, you can stop at any point. I thought adding that shadow would be enough, but it was not. So I'm just going to add a little bit more up here as well. and blend that out. And of course I stuck my hand in the paint. So if you do that, I'll show you a good way to get rid of that. I'm going to spray a little bit of my clean water on the paper, and I am going to lightly scrub with a paper towel, a clean paper towel, and there you go. All right, everyone, this time I'm really finished. I'm done. I'm leaving it alone. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.